When you visit Yellowstone National Park, you can expect to see some amazing wildlife, including bison, elk, bears, and wolves. But one thing you should never expect to see is a human corpse. However, that is exactly what happened to a man whose body was found by authorities in Yellowstone back in 2016. Since then, the FBI has been reluctant to release footage of the grisly discovery, but now they have. And it's painting a picture of what really went down. What we've gonna do in today's episode of On This Day is take a look at the shocking footage released by the FBI and find out what exactly went down when this man vanished in Yellowstone. But before we get started, be sure to smash that like button for more great videos. Also stick around until the end if you want to hear about another grisly discovery made inside a national park. You won't want to miss it. It all started on June 8, 2016, when a tourist visiting Yellowstone National Park decided to venture off the beaten path. Like many tourists who come to the park each year, he wanted to experience everything it had to offer, even if it meant straying away from the marked hiking trails. It wasn't long before his decision would cost him his life. He was identified only as a 34-year-old man from Maryland. He and his girlfriend were spending time together in the park and decided to explore an area near Black Sand Basin. That's where he disappeared, without a trace. According to reports, he sent his girlfriend a text message reading, "I'm going for a walk," and then vanished. His girlfriend didn't think much of it at first, assuming that he'd be back in a few minutes. When he wasn't, she began to get worried. So she waited by their car for a while before deciding to go looking for him. She soon realized something was wrong. She searched for him along hiking trails in nearby areas, but couldn't find him anywhere. After a couple of hours, she finally called the police to report him missing. Authorities immediately launched a massive search operation, combing through the area and calling in search dogs. But after 2 days of searching, they had no luck finding the missing tourist. They had to call off the search and leave the case unsolved. Yellowstone National Park officials warned visitors not to venture off designated paths and to always let someone know when they plan to hike alone. For the most part, people seemed to accept the explanation and moved on with their lives. But the man's family refused to believe he'd simply gotten lost. They insisted something more sinister had happened to him, and they weren't going to rest until they got answers. They hired a private investigator, Joe Scott Morgan, to look into the case. Morgan believed the official story and told Inside Edition, "I don't think he strayed from the trail to go to an area known for its geysers and hot spots. It just doesn't make sense." But he did acknowledge that something strange had happened to the man. He said, "You don't hike into an area like that. Look at a map. Say, geez, I'm going to go check out the geysers," and just vanish. The family took their fight to the media and their persistence paid off. In February 2017, authorities announced they would reopen the investigation. A month later, they uncovered something that explained exactly what happened to the missing hiker. It was one of the strangest discoveries ever made in Yellowstone National Park. On March 22, 2017, a maintenance worker was driving along a remote stretch of road near Black Sand Basin when he spotted something disturbing in the snow. At first, he assumed it was a bear, but as he drove closer, he realized it was a human hand. He quickly reported the gruesome discovery, and authorities descended on the area. They used snowmobiles to reach the site where they discovered the rest of the man's body. But how did he die? According to a press release from the FBI, his body was found in an advanced stage of decomposition, but investigators believe he likely died from injuries sustained from a fall. But there was still a lot that didn't add up. Why would someone fall to their death in an area with so many geysers and hot springs? Officials did confirm that the man's body wasn't in any of the hot springs, but that didn't explain how he died. Officials also revealed the cause of death was consistent with the man's story. In other words, the man most likely fell after sending that last text message to his girlfriend. He probably wandered off the trail and accidentally fell into a crevice, or slipped and tumbled down a hill. But there was still one piece of the puzzle that didn't make sense. Why was the man's body in such good condition despite being left out in the cold for months? According to authorities, the extremely cold temperatures in Yellowstone helped preserve the body, which is why it was still intact. It turns out the area where the man was found is very remote and difficult to access. So it is possible his body simply lay undiscovered for months, until the snow melted and the maintenance worker spotted the hand. Authorities released a series of images of the area where the body was found, but they refused to release footage of the body itself. Many people criticized the FBI for covering up details of the gruesome discovery, but officials stood firm. FBI spokeswoman Laura Cutiletta told the Washington Post they understand the public's interest in this case, especially due to the length of time it took to locate Mr. Jacobson's remains. However, this was a highly sensitive investigation involving the recovery of human remains. But now, new footage has surfaced, and it's giving us an idea of just how bad the situation was when authorities arrived at the scene. The images show just how remote the area is where the body was found. The man's remains were located far off any road in an area only accessible by snowmobile or foot. But some people are saying the FBI isn't being totally forthcoming. What they've released seems carefully curated to paint a grim picture of what went down. Some people are wondering if they're hiding something. If you take a close look at some of the images, you can see that the body was covered in what appears to be a sheet or tarp. The FBI says this is to protect the dignity of the deceased, but others suspect there's more to the story. Some people are speculating that the FBI is covering up signs of foul play. There are several theories floating around. Some people think the man was murdered and pushed into the ravine. Others believe he stumbled into an area with unmarked hot springs and accidentally fell in, but no one knows for sure. One thing is for certain, though. The man's death was a freak accident. Authorities say it's highly unlikely anything like this will happen again. But that hasn't stopped people from coming up with all sorts of theories. Take a look at these. One person wrote, "This guy definitely did not fall. Someone shoved him right over the edge of that cliff." Then the killer tried to cover it up by throwing in his backpack and camera. Another person wrote, "Even if he did fall, why was his body covered up with a sheet? And why was the sheet tied at the bottom of the hill?" But despite the conspiracy theories, authorities stand by their story. They say the man's body was covered to protect his dignity, and there is no evidence he was the victim of foul play. But one person pointed out something else that doesn't quite make sense. Why would the FBI wait nearly a year to release the footage? Could be because they wanted to give the man's family time to grieve in peace, or it could be because they wanted to avoid sparking another wave of conspiracy theories. Either way, the FBI finally gave the public a glimpse of what went down in Yellowstone. But some people aren't satisfied. We may never know exactly what happened to the man, but one thing is for certain. It was a tragedy that could have been avoided if he'd simply stayed on the trail. Hopefully, his death will serve as a warning to others who might be tempted to do the same. Now, if you want to hear about another grisly discovery made inside a national park, check out this video. Or if you want to learn about something terrifying found in the woods, check out this video.